Also joining us in the studio is Lisa Knight, who is the owner of the award-winning Thai restaurant chain Café Isan. Lisa, thank you so much for coming into the studio. Really lovely to see you. You are our starting up entrepreneur for the programme this quarter.
You're very welcome.
Lovely to have you in. Real pleasure. Now, Café Isan is all about simple, authentic Thai food. You pride yourself on being affordable, and that's part of your appeal. But how is inflation affecting your pricing?
Actually, it's already affected our pricing. We've had to sort of take the unfortunate step of raising some of our prices, not all, but a little bit. Trying to get a balance really between, lowering costs but keeping the profit margins at least similar to what they were a couple of years ago. But it's not an easy thing to achieve, that's for sure.
Yeah, I suppose as a business owner, Lisa, one of the things, there's so many amazing restaurants in Dubai at the moment, aren't there? Beautiful locations, amazing settings, and then sometimes the service lets you down a little bit because they scrimp on one particular thing. So inflation is forcing you to prioritise, right? What are the main things that you look at to make sure that your customer gets that experience that makes you win 2 years in a row? Best Thai from Time Out. Well done.
3 years in a row.
Wow. Oh my God, I've got something for that. Hang on a sec.
Actually, we never ever skimp on service. That's not to say we don't have a flexible approach to our staffing. Like, for example, we hire a lot of Thai students and part-time staff. And that's the recent changes in the law have really benefited us in that sense. And also it makes for a happier workplace because if people don't have to be around 10 to 12 hours a day, they have a really nice, work-life balance. It seems to work in everybody's favour, so that's been quite good for us.
So you've got people in the restaurant who know what they're talking about. I mean, I was just researching your restaurant, and I think that the region that you specialise in is a very large region in Thailand. But not such a well-known one. One of the things that I find is, again, you go into these restaurants and the staff that are serving you don't necessarily understand quite about the products that they have.
Absolutely. That's a bugbear of mine personally when I'm not at work as well. But for us, our operating procedures has really detailed training as well. Even Thais, when Thais work for us, we also expect them to really, really study the minute detail. They should be able to talk about the ingredients, because these days you have a lot of allergies and eating preferences that you just have to have a detailed conversation.
You absolutely do. I mean, there's so many people coming with nut allergies. Now, you're speaking there about the ingredients. I imagine that must be one of the big expenses for you, obviously.
Yes,
have
absolutely.
you noticed that the price of those ingredients has gone up? Things like the price of rice or the price of meat?
Absolutely. Actually, we've noticed an increase in increase in the price of vegetables more than anything. For example, broccoli. About a month or so ago, the broccoli went up. Yeah, broccoli, the innocent, lovely broccoli, went up to almost 30 dirhams per kilo.
Do you know, I noticed that.
It's insane.
Genuinely.
No, I didn't notice it, Georgia.
I'm going to be asking you about the price of milk in a minute.
What are vegetables?
I really noticed that broccoli went up and it suddenly was very expensive because my children do eat broccoli. I need some sort of halo for that.
Yeah,
but they do. So, why did it go up? It's so weird.
I'm not really too sure. It was actually very difficult to get for a while as well. So we had to have this
All right, girls, enough with the broccoli. I want to highlight something about your restaurant that I just heard earlier. You're a champion of some of the jurisdictional changes and the ways that the Dubai government are getting behind businesses and it's facilitated students working at your place, for example. I also believe there's a small matter of a licence for one of your facilities. Is that right?
Do you mean the special license?
Exactly.
Yes,
so one
beverage. We call it the beverage license.
Yeah, the beverage license.
So that's amazing. So there's a more rounded experience when you go to your restaurant. Where is it? Where should the listeners head?
It's in the Armada Avenue Hotel, where the same location as the lovely Mythos and Nola, Cluster P in JLT.
Yep. Oh, I know it well. Yeah.
Up
Good
on
location.
the first floor.
Yeah.
So we've been there. Actually, it's our anniversary. It's a 1-year anniversary tomorrow.
What about that?
Congratulations. Yeah. So tell me, you've seen the inflationary pressures on food and you've seen the inflationary pressures on staffing.
Yes.
Has it actually affected your operations and your plans to expand?
It hasn't. Actually, we're full steam ahead at the moment. We're looking into other venues. We also, as you mentioned, the special beverage license place, the relationship we have with that partner, for example, it's not a traditional landlord and tenant. So it's a profit share type of relationship. So it's win-win for everybody. So we're looking, part of our expansion plans would be to have other partnerships like that.
I think you're being very modest. I think that people love, at the end of the day, inflation's happening, Georgia, but there's also a flight to quality, right? There always is. People look for quality. And Lisa, Thai food is healthy. The spice helps our metabolism, right?
Let's not talk about the spice.
And so you're obviously expanding.
No, absolutely. We are. We absolutely are.
I mean, is this something, these inflationary pressures, is this something that you anticipated when you started the business, or have they sort of slightly crept up on you? As a business owner who runs something like a restaurant, do you have to sort of take your perspective quite wide?
Yeah, I think you do. I think you always have to factor in slight increases in costs, on a year-on-year basis, but definitely not to the degree that we've seen. I would say towards the end of last year, we started to feel the pinch. I mean, our rents increased by 15%.
Wow.
And that's before, the situation in
I think
in
F&B
Ukraine.
always takes it in the head because there's the famous soft shell crab index, isn't there? How much does a soft shell crab cost in various cities around the world?
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Well, it's the sort of wannabe version of the McDonald's
That's
index.
so cool.
And I think I shouldn't say it's a great victory, but I think that we may have won that on one particular year. So,
what, here in the UAE?
Yes.
We had the most expensive soft shell crab.
We did, and as such, the most tasty, in my opinion.
I'm sure that's the case. Tahir's just got in touch saying, speaking of inflation, the famous Pakistani bread was selling for 1 dirhams for the last decade or so, has now been increased to 1.25 dirhams. So that's up by 25% by Tahir's math. Is that right?
I'm going to always agree
I
with
always
you.
agree
You're the
with.
boss.
I can't speak and do maths at the same time. Something that we discovered very recently. So yeah, oddly enough, on the business breakfast this morning, they were talking about the possibility that India might introduce protectionist measures around rice exports, which of course would have a huge impact on the Indian restaurants here. Is that something that you've seen with your rice supplies, for example?
Not yet. Actually, we did anticipate an issue with the rice imports, so we ordered like 1.5 tons recently to just help us along.
What does that look like when it arrives?
Well, you should see my apartment.
I think in Scotland they
Spread across
started
3
protectionist
restaurants, not
measures on
enough space.
fried Mars bars.
Almost certainly.
That didn't work.
Almost certainly. So you went for 1.5 tons of rice.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
In anticipation of that. That's
Yeah.
fascinating. No, I mean, in many ways, it will seem a very logical move going forward, I imagine. Wow. That is amazing. I've never thought of that. That shows a real practical measure that you as a restaurant owner are required to take.
absolutely. We have to really, because it's like you mentioned earlier on in the interview that we're a good value restaurant, and we will fight hammer and tooth to keep that. It's really difficult. It's not a comfortable move to increase prices at all.
Has it affected the amount of customers you have coming into the restaurant, do you think? Do you think they've noticed the uplift?
I think they have a little bit, but it's been minimal, and most of the time we'll have quite
Yeah, I
great
think it's
conversation.
something for the business owner, not just restaurant owners, but it's about communicating to your customer. And a lot of people will just try and do it, under the radar. But sometimes it's good to say, listen, these things are happening. We have to deal with it. We have to protect our level of service. And this is what we're doing. And providing you communicate that openly, I think people will empathise with you. So another business lesson.
Yes, good advice. Interesting.
I think they do.
Lisa, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lisa Knight, the owner of award-winning Thai restaurant chain Café Isan. It's lovely to have you in the studio. Congratulations on your new beverage licence.
Happy anniversary tomorrow.
And happy
Thank you.
anniversary tomorrow.